In the depths of a remote forest, nestled away from the modern world, an old lumberjack named Harold Wiggins lived a life steeped in solitude. Known for his rugged demeanor and unwavering independence, he had spent decades felling trees and crafting timber in a cabin that had become both his sanctuary and prison. But one crisp autumn day, Harold vanished without a trace, leaving behind an eerie stillness that would haunt the woods for years to come. The only clues were the remnants of his daily routines, unwashed dishes in the sink and firewood stacked neatly outside. Months turned into years as search parties scoured the rugged terrain, combing through thickets and dense underbrush, but Harold's whereabouts remained a mystery. His family held on to hope, but as the seasons changed, so too did the likelihood of finding him alive. The case faded into the quiet annals of unsolved disappearances, a ghost story for the local townsfolk who occasionally spoke of the lumberjack who simply vanished. Then, in a turn of fate that would reignite the flames of hope, a group of hikers stumbled upon something unexpected, a tunnel hidden beneath the underbrush near Harold's cabin. It was an unmarked entrance, partially obscured by fallen leaves and brush, leading deep into the earth, a stark contrast to the life Harold had lived above ground. The discovery sent shockwaves through the community. Could this secret passage be the key to uncovering what happened to the old lumberjack? Enter Sarah Wiggins, Harold's estranged daughter. For years, she had grappled with the pain of her father's disappearance, caught in a web of unresolved emotions and unanswered questions. While many had given up, Sarah found herself drawn back to the forest where her father had lived, compelled by a mixture of grief and determination. The tunnel, she believed, could hold the answers she had long sought. But would she find the truth, or merely the remnants of a forgotten past? As Sarah began to piece together the clues, the skepticism of authorities became apparent. Many had long since moved on, dismissing her concerns as the musings of a grieving daughter. The investigators had closed the case, believing that Harold had simply succumbed to the wilderness he had known so well. They were unwilling to entertain the idea that a hidden tunnel might lead to a discovery so profound it could rewrite the narrative of Harold's life and death. But Sarah's heart told her otherwise. The tunnel was more than just a passage. It represented a lifeline to her father's existence. With each step she took toward that darkened entrance, the weight of her past pressed upon her. What could she uncover in the shadows of the earth that might reveal the secrets of her father's life? As she ventured deeper into the investigation, Sarah uncovered a web of mysteries that twisted and turned through the very fabric of her father's world. People who had known Harold began to surface, revealing fragments of stories that had long been hidden, whispers of a man who might have led a double life, who mingled with strangers, and who held secrets that could haunt an entire community. Was it possible that the old lumberjack, who had appeared to be a solitary soul, had been entangled in something far darker than anyone could have imagined? With each revelation, Sarah found herself standing at the crossroads of disbelief and determination, her resolve hardening like the timber her father had once crafted. What lay at the end of the tunnel? A tragic accident? A nefarious plot? Or perhaps something even more shocking, a cover-up by those she would least expect? As the pieces of this puzzle began to align, Sarah sensed she was stepping into a realm where the past would collide with the present, where the truth was as obscured as the depths of the tunnel itself. In the days that followed, as she sought answers and confronted the shadows of her father's life, Sarah would discover that the path to closure was paved with both courage and heartache. The old lumberjack's disappearance was no simple tale. It was a labyrinth of human emotions, buried secrets and untold stories waiting to be unearthed. As the forest loomed around her, whispers of the past echoed in the rustling leaves, urging Sarah onward. Little did she know, she was about to unveil a truth that could shatter everything she thought she knew about her father, and perhaps about herself. Join us in Part 2, as we delve deeper into the discovery of the tunnel and the secrets it holds, the investigation that unfolds, and the unexpected twists that challenge Sarah's quest for the truth. The journey into the heart of the mystery has only just begun. What will be revealed when the light finally pierces the darkness? Will Sarah find the answers she seeks, or will they lead her down a path from which there is no return? As Sarah stood at the mouth of the tunnel, the air felt charged with an unsettling energy. The entrance loomed before her, a dark gash in the earth that seemed to beckon her closer, promising both revelation and danger. With each step, her heart raced, fueled by a mix of dread and determination. She had spent countless nights poring over her father's journals, searching for clues, and piecing together fragments of a life that had always seemed remote. Now, this tunnel offered a tangible connection to the mysteries that surrounded his disappearance. What had he been hiding? What secrets lay buried in the shadows? As she ventured deeper, the walls of the tunnel closed in, echoing with the sounds of her footsteps. The air grew colder, and the light from the entrance faded, engulfing her in a suffocating darkness. Yet, she pressed on, armed with a flashlight and the flickering hope that she would find something, anything that might explain why her father had never returned home. After what felt like hours of navigating the damp, twisting passage, Sarah stumbled upon a small chamber. The walls were adorned with crude carvings, symbols she recognized from her father's writings. Panic surged within her. He had known this place, perhaps even sought refuge here, but why? As she scanned the room, her flashlight caught something glinting in the corner. Sarah approached cautiously, her breath hitching in her throat. It was a box, weathered and locked, yet clearly important. Her fingers trembled as she reached for it, her mind racing with possibilities. Could this hold answers, or was it merely another layer of deception? With no key in sight, Sarah rifled through her father's tools, hoping to find something that could force it open. Each clang of metal against metal echoed ominously through the chamber, amplifying her anxiety. Her instincts warned her that time was of the essence. Someone else might be aware of this tunnel, and if they were, she might not be alone for long. Just as she began to lose hope, a loud crack reverberated through the tunnel, startling her. A chill raced down her spine. It was as if the very earth had shifted beneath her feet. She turned, heart pounding, and caught a glimpse of a shadow moving in the distance. "Who's there?" she called, her voice trembling. Silence answered, thick and foreboding. With resolve, Sarah returned her focus to the box. She couldn't afford to be distracted now. Whatever lay inside could change everything. As she worked to pry it open, her mind churned with questions. Had her father stumbled upon something dangerous? Was he being hunted by someone who wanted to keep the truth buried? The box finally gave way, creaking open to reveal its contents, a collection of documents, photographs, and a small tarnished locket. The photographs were of a woman Sarah had never seen before, yet there was a striking resemblance to her father. Who was she? And why did her presence seem so significant? Sarah felt a growing sense of dread as she leafed through the documents. They were filled with references to a local logging company, legal disputes, and veiled threats that hinted at a darker world her father had been part of, a world filled with corruption and fear. Suddenly the weight of the mystery pressed down on her, a veil of uncertainty clouding her thoughts. Had her father been involved in something far more sinister than she ever imagined? And if so, what had happened to him? The shadows in the tunnel felt closer now, almost alive, as if they were whispering secrets meant only for her ears. As she gathered the papers and the locket, Sarah felt a stirring within her. She knew she had to confront those who might hold the key to her father's truth. But how could she approach a world so steeped in darkness and deception? Her heart raced at the thought of facing the unknown, but she refused to back down. The investigation had only just begun, and Sarah was determined to uncover the truth, no matter how dangerous the journey would become. What awaited her above ground, in the heart of the logging community, was uncertain. But with each step away from the tunnel, she felt the pull of destiny drawing her closer to a confrontation that could shatter everything she believed. The time for secrets was ending, and soon the truth would demand to be faced. As Sarah emerged from the shadows of the tunnel, the crisp air of the logging community bit at her skin, grounding her in the reality of her father's disappearance. She took a deep breath, steeling herself for what lay ahead. With the locket nestled against her heart, she set her sights on the local bar, a place where the stories of the town flowed as freely as the drinks. The bar was a dimly lit establishment, filled with the rough and tumble of lumberjacks unwinding after a long day. Sarah stepped inside, the chatter quieting as she made her way to the counter. The bartender, a grizzled man with deep lines etched into his weathered face, raised an eyebrow at her. "Can I help you?" he asked, his tone skeptical. "I'm looking for information about my father," Sarah replied, her voice steady despite the tumult within. "He disappeared a few years ago. I found something that makes me think he was involved in something important." The bartender's expression shifted, a flash of recognition flickering in his eyes. "You mean the old lumberjack?" Before she could respond, he leaned in closer, lowering his voice. "People don't talk about him. Best not to dig too deep." But Sarah couldn't retreat. The fear in his voice only fueled her determination. "I need to know what happened to him. Did he have enemies? Was he involved in something dangerous?" He hesitated, glancing around the bar as if the walls themselves could betray him. "Let's just say your father wasn't the only one who had secrets. This town, it has a way of burying the past. You might not like what you uncover." The bartender's words hung heavy in the air, but before she could press further, he abruptly turned away, disappearing into the back room. Frustration bubbled within her. She needed answers, not veiled warnings. As Sarah left the bar, determination surged through her veins. She would not be deterred by whispers of fear. The locket in her pocket felt like a guiding light, urging her forward. She headed to the local library, a place where history and the stories of the town were preserved. Hours passed as she pored over dusty records and newspaper clippings, searching for any mention of her father's name. The more she read, the more she sensed an undercurrent of tension that permeated the community. It was evident that her father had been a man of significance, yet the details were obscured by a fog of silence. Then an article caught her eye. It detailed a series of unexplained disappearances in the area around the same time her father vanished. Each case had been dismissed, labeled as accidents or the consequences of a dangerous lifestyle, but the similarities were striking. Sarah's heart raced as she scribbled down names and dates, each piece of information drawing her deeper into a labyrinth of mystery. Was there a connection between her father and the others who had disappeared? Just as she was about to leave, a familiar face appeared in the doorway, Paul, the town sheriff. He had a reputation for being a man of few words, but his eyes betrayed a wealth of knowledge. Sarah's stomach twisted at the sight of him. If anyone knew about her father's past, it would be him. Taking a deep breath, she approached him, determination etched on her face. "Sheriff, I need to talk to you about my father's case. There's something I found that—" Before she could finish, he cut her off, his expression hardening. "I think it's best if you let the past lie where it is. It's safer that way." His words hit her like a punch. The sheriff's apprehension was palpable, and she sensed that he was guarding more than just his silence. She stood frozen, her mind racing. What did he know? Why was he so intent on keeping the truth buried? As he turned to leave, she felt the weight of the locket pulling at her, a reminder that the truth was closer than it had ever been. But the sheriff's warning echoed in her mind, planting seeds of doubt. In that moment, she realized that the deeper she dug, the more danger she could invite into her life. But Sarah was not one to shy away from a challenge. She had to confront the shadows of her father's life, no matter the cost. With a newfound resolve, she vowed to connect the dots, to uncover the dark web surrounding her father's disappearance. As she stepped back into the chilling night, the pieces of the puzzle were beginning to align, but the confrontation was still looming, just beyond her reach. What she would uncover next could change everything, but it was a risk she was willing to take. Days turned into weeks as Sarah pored over every scrap of information she could find. The locket, with its faded photo, was not just a keepsake, it was now her guiding light. Driven by her father's memory, she scoured local archives, reached out to old acquaintances, and even enlisted the help of amateur sleuths online. Each lead brought her closer to a truth she felt was within her grasp. Yet the closer she got, the more she sensed an unseen force pushing back against her. Then, one fateful afternoon, Sarah received an unexpected message. A user named Mysterious Find had reached out to her, claiming to have information about her father. Skepticism crept in as she read their cryptic words. "The truth is buried deeper than you think. Trust no one." Despite the unease gnawing at her, she felt an urgency to respond. Arranging to meet in a public place, Sarah arrived at a cafe, her heart racing. As she scanned the crowd, she spotted a figure in a dark hoodie. The anonymity was unsettling. When the figure revealed themselves, Sarah's heart dropped. It was an old friend of her father's, someone she hadn't seen since the disappearance, a man named Jake. He slid into the seat across from her, his eyes darting around nervously. "Sarah, I didn't want to get involved, but I've seen things. Things that don't add up," he whispered, glancing over his shoulder. "Your dad was mixed up in something dangerous, something that could have led to his disappearance." Questions flooded her mind, but she pressed him for details. Jake hesitated, then spoke in hushed tones about a secret life her father had led, one that involved unsavory characters and whispered dealings that had nothing to do with the man she thought she knew. He painted a picture of a man who had been living under the radar, involved in a criminal conspiracy that spanned years. "People were watching him, Sarah, and it wasn't just the police," Jake continued, his voice trembling. "He was involved in something much bigger, something that could get you hurt." Sarah's mind raced. Had her father truly been leading a double life? As Jake spoke, she remembered the strange phone calls, the late-night meetings that were always cloaked in secrecy. But why hadn't anyone told her? Why had the sheriff tried to silence her? Just then, her phone buzzed. A notification from an obscure social media account caught her eye. It was a photo, one she recognized immediately. Her father standing alongside a group of men, shadows concealing their faces, but the environment was unmistakable. It was a place she had driven past countless times, a rundown warehouse on the outskirts of town. "Sarah, you have to be careful," Jake urged, sensing the shift in her demeanor. "If what I'm saying is true, then someone doesn't want you digging into this." But Sarah's resolve only hardened. "I have to know the truth, Jake. If my father was in danger, I need to find out why and who was behind it." In that moment, the gravity of her father's world settled heavily on her shoulders. This was not merely a quest for closure. It was a descent into a labyrinth of secrets that could ensnare her at every turn. As she left the cafe, the photo burned in her pocket, a chilling reminder of the shadows that loomed ahead. The path to uncovering her father's fate was fraught with peril, but Sarah was no longer the daughter looking for answers. She was a woman ready to confront the darkness that had taken him from her. With each step, she felt the weight of her decision. She was entering a game where the stakes were life and death, but the question remained: would she emerge victorious, or would she become another casualty in the pursuit of the truth? Sarah spent the next few days combing through every scrap of information she could find about her father's disappearance. The old lumberjack had left behind a trail of whispers and speculation in a town that had moved on, but she was determined to unearth the truth. She started by visiting the local library, poring over old newspapers and archived articles that detailed her father's life before he vanished. Each page turned felt like a step deeper into the forest of her father's past, where secrets lay hidden among the trees. She came across a series of articles that mentioned a man named Harold Finch, a once respected figure in the community who had fallen from grace after a scandal involving timber theft. Finch had been her father's closest friend, but now he seemed to be a shadowy figure who might hold the keys to understanding her father's final days. With a new lead in hand, Sarah resolved to find Finch. The old warehouse where she had found the unsettling photograph seemed to echo with her father's laughter when she remembered the stories he told about his days in the woods with Finch. But she also recalled the change in her father's tone whenever Harold was mentioned, an uneasy mixture of fondness and caution. She tracked Finch down to a small, dilapidated cabin on the outskirts of town, nearly hidden by the dense underbrush. As she approached, a chill ran down her spine. The air was thick with tension, and the weight of her father's legacy bore down on her. She knocked on the door, the sound echoing like a drumbeat of impending confrontation. After what felt like an eternity, Finch appeared, his eyes narrowing as he recognized her. "Sarah," he said, his voice gravelly and wary. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Where's my father, Harold?" she demanded, her voice steady, despite the turmoil roiling within her. "What happened the night he disappeared?" He hesitated, his expression shifting between recognition and fear. "You shouldn't be asking these questions, girl. Some things are better left buried." Sarah's heart raced. She sensed the walls closing in, the tension between them thickening like fog. "If you know something, you have to tell me. I deserve to know what happened to him." Finch's eyes darted around as if searching for an escape route. "Your father was involved in things you can't even begin to understand," he finally muttered, his voice dropping to a near whisper. "He was in over his head, and there are people who won't take kindly to you digging into this." "People?" she echoed, feeling a mix of dread and determination. "What do you mean?" Finch stepped back, glancing nervously at the woods that surrounded them. "There's a reason he built that tunnel. It wasn't just for storage. He was hiding something. Something that could put both of us in danger." With those words, the air around them crackled with unspoken threats, and the weight of her father's hidden life pressed heavily on Sarah's shoulders. She could feel the sinister implications of Finch's confession winding around her like a noose. This was no longer just a father's disappearance. It was a dark secret buried beneath layers of fear and deception. As she stood there, the forest loomed ominously, whispering secrets that were just out of reach. The encounter had ignited a fire within her, but it also brought the chilling realization that the truth she sought might be more dangerous than she had ever imagined. The confrontation had only just begun, and Sarah was determined to unearth every dark corner of her father's past, no matter the cost. She would go deeper, but with each step, she felt the shadows drawing closer, threatening to consume her whole. Determined to unravel the mystery surrounding her father, Sarah plunged deeper into the investigation. The woods felt different now, each rustle in the underbrush echoing her mounting anxiety. With the knowledge that her father had hidden something significant, Sarah felt compelled to uncover the truth, whatever it might be. Days turned into sleepless nights as she pored over old documents, photographs, and anything related to her father's life before his disappearance. She reached out to old acquaintances and neighbors, piecing together fragmented memories that seemed innocuous at first glance. Each conversation revealed clues laced with unease, whispers of a man who had retreated into solitude for more than just a love of the wilderness. Yet, as she dug deeper, Sarah encountered resistance. Some locals were hesitant to speak, their faces tightening with fear whenever she mentioned her father's name. Others outright warned her to stop asking questions, insisting that her father had chosen his path for a reason, and it was one best left undisturbed. The shadows in the forest seemed to grow longer, darker, as if the trees themselves were conspiring to hide the truth. One evening, Sarah received a tip that changed everything. An anonymous message led her to an old diner on the outskirts of town. The diner was a relic of the past, its faded signs and worn-out booths filled with the secrets of generations. There she met a woman named Clara, who claimed to have known her father before his reclusive years. Clara's voice trembled as she spoke, recounting tales of late-night visitors and hushed conversations that took place within the cabin's walls. "He was different back then," Clara said, "always looking over his shoulder. I thought he was just paranoid, but now—" Her voice trailed off and Sarah felt a chill crawl up her spine. "Now what?" Sarah pressed, desperation seeping into her tone. "Now I wonder if he was in over his head. There were rumors, you know. Something about a deal gone wrong." Clara's eyes flickered with fear. "I didn't want to believe it. But now with you asking questions, I can't help but think, maybe he got tangled up in something bigger." Bigger. The word echoed in Sarah's mind as she realized how little she truly understood her father's life. The pieces were starting to connect, but they painted a picture more sinister than she had anticipated. With each revelation, the danger felt more palpable, lurking just out of sight. As she left the diner, Sarah's determination hardened. She had to confront Finch again. He had hinted at knowing more than he let on, and now she needed answers. What had her father been hiding? And who were the people Finch had alluded to? But as she approached the cabin, the woods seemed to thicken, the shadows stretching longer, hinting at the secrets they cloaked. Sarah felt a sudden pang of foreboding. The closer she got to the truth, the more perilous the path became. The confrontation loomed ahead, but with it came the unsettling realization that the truth might reveal not just her father's past, but also the dark forces that had ensnared him. And as Sarah stepped closer to the cabin, She sensed that she was no longer the only one hunting for answers. Someone was watching her, hidden among the trees, waiting for the right moment to strike. With each step, Sarah's heart raced. The air felt heavier, laden with unspoken threats. She reached the cabin, its weathered facade standing defiantly against the encroaching shadows. It had been a refuge for her father, but now it felt more like a tomb, holding on to secrets that demanded to be unearthed. As she pushed the door open, the familiar creak of the hinges sent chills down her spine. Memories flooded back, her father's laughter, the warmth of the fire. But now those memories felt tainted, marred by the knowledge of his disappearance, and the tunnel that hinted at something far more sinister. Sarah moved cautiously through the dimly lit space, her eyes scanning every corner. The cabin was cluttered with relics of a life well lived yet overshadowed by mysteries. She approached her father's desk, where papers lay scattered, each one a potential clue to the life he had led beyond the woods. Among the documents, she spotted a faded map. It was marked with strange symbols and paths that twisted through the forest, leading toward the very area where the tunnel had been discovered. Her pulse quickened. Was this a route he had taken? A secret he had kept? Suddenly, a noise outside snapped her attention. She rushed to the window, peering through the glass, her breath catching in her throat. A figure moved stealthily between the trees, just beyond the reach of the cabin's light. The silhouette was too familiar, too unsettling. Finch. What was he doing here? Was he watching her? Or was he too searching for answers? With her heart pounding in her ears, Sarah grabbed the map and slipped it into her pocket. She needed to confront Finch, but she also needed to tread carefully. What if he was not the ally she had hoped for? In a moment of resolve, she stepped outside, calling out into the darkness. "Finch, I know you're out there." Silence. The woods seemed to hold its breath, the whisper of the wind carrying an air of tension. Then, slowly, Finch emerged from the shadows, his face a mask of concern mixed with something unreadable. "Sarah," he said cautiously, "you shouldn't be here alone." She narrowed her eyes, unwilling to back down. "Why are you here, Finch? What do you know about my father? About the tunnel?" Finch hesitated, his gaze darting to the ground. "Your father was involved in things that could get dangerous. I didn't want you to get caught up in it." "Caught up in what?" she pressed, feeling the weight of the words as they hung in the air. "What did he do?" He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "There are people who don't want this to come out. Your father was trying to protect you from them." A chill swept through her. The shadows around them felt alive, as if the woods were closing in. Protect me? Or protect himself? Finch's eyes darkened. "You need to leave this alone, Sarah. You're digging into something that could lead to danger you can't even begin to understand." But Sarah felt the urgency in her veins. "No, I won't back down. I need to know the truth about him and what happened. I won't let fear control me." As they stood there, the weight of the confrontation thickened in the air. Finch opened his mouth to speak, but a rustle from the trees interrupted them. Both of them turned, senses heightened. Someone else was out there, watching, waiting, and suddenly the darkness felt far less forgiving. "Sarah," Finch said urgently, "we need to go, now." As they turned to leave, Sarah realized that the truth was closer than ever, but so were the dangers lurking in the shadows. The investigation was about to take a turn, one that would lead to a confrontation with the very forces that had kept her father's past buried. The darkness was closing in, but Sarah was ready to face whatever awaited her. In the days that followed, the shadows of doubt began to lift as Sarah's relentless pursuit of the truth uncovered a trail of deception that had long been hidden. Armed with the new evidence she had painstakingly gathered, she went to the authorities once again, this time with a sense of purpose that could not be ignored. The skepticism she had faced before transformed into a sense of urgency as investigators began to piece together the puzzle of her father's disappearance. As the investigation unfolded, it became clear that her father's life had been intricately woven into a web of betrayal and secrecy. Friends turned into foes, and allies emerged from unexpected places. The truth revealed that her father had been involved in a clandestine operation, one that had put him at odds with dangerous individuals who would stop at nothing to protect their interests. The very people she once thought had her family's best interests at heart were the ones who had orchestrated his disappearance. In a climactic confrontation, Sarah found herself face to face with those responsible for her father's fate. The room was tense, filled with unspoken accusations and raw emotions. She demanded answers, her voice unwavering as she sought justice not only for her father, but for the countless others who had fallen victim to a system that had failed them. In those harrowing moments, the weight of the years spent in anguish was palpable. But as the truth spilled forth, it was clear that justice, though delayed, was finally within reach. The culprits were exposed, their carefully constructed lives crumbling around them under the weight of their own misdeeds. The authorities moved swiftly, leading to arrests that would bring an end to the cycle of fear that had haunted Sarah and her family for so long. As the dust settled, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. She had ventured into the darkness, faced her fears, and uncovered the painful truths buried beneath years of silence. The struggle for justice was never easy, but it had revealed the resilience of love and the power of unwavering determination. In the end, Sarah understood that while her father's story had been one of loss, it was also a testament to the enduring quest for truth. As she stood at the edge of the woods where her father had once vanished, she felt a sense of closure. The shadows had lifted, and with them came a profound understanding. Every truth revealed is a victory against the darkness that seeks to obscure it. Sarah's journey was not just about seeking justice for her father. It was a powerful reminder that the fight for truth is universal, echoing in the hearts of those who refuse to let go. And as she walked away from the past, she knew the question would linger. How many more stories remain hidden, waiting for someone brave enough to uncover them?